is it gonna make sense in the Marvel Cinematic Universe based on what happened in the other, like you just mentioned, the whole finger snap?
So the Avengers had to go back in time, basically to get the Infinity Stones in order to basically recreate the glove that Thanos used to do this, to snap their own fingers and bring everybody back. And so, but what that did, look, man, you laugh, and what I find so ironic about like how you perceive the Marvel universe is the cognitive dissonance of the fact that you love YA novels and movies,
I
which
was literally
is
thinking
so
the same
interesting.
thing.
It's so interesting how you could hear that and you'd be like, oh, that's so stupid. But then like you hear like, oh, this werewolf loves this vampire or whatever the fuck it is. And you're like, no, that's plausible. You don't like the Marvel movies, as you've clearly made very abundantly clear.
That is fake news, preposterous. I love them.
Preposterous. I love them. Okay, fair enough. But what I had you do was because we were supposed to do the show yesterday, and through no fault of my own, a rain, we were not able to record. So long story short, I had you watch Loki. Now, what was the last Marvel thing that you've watched? What's the last thing you remember before
Last Marvel thing that I watched? Well,
Yeah.
I had to be introduced to Loki because I had no idea who the fuck Loki was.
Fair.
Last Marvel thing that I watched
Mhm.
was Netflix Daredevil.
Oh, okay.
It was good, which I really liked.
And then from that, you're just like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not.
I attempted to watch one of the Avengers or Captain America movies. It fucking sucked, so I just stopped.
Huh. Yeah, interesting. So we watched the first 3 episodes of Loki. So we're just gonna chop it up real quick. I'm gonna try to come from a different angle outside of like the whole Marvel-ness of it, and kind of go take a little bit of a different route. But let me hear your early thoughts. What did you think as a non-Marvel movie / show watcher? What did you think of Loki? The first 3 episodes.
So my first exposure to Loki, the character Loki. If these are the 3 episodes that I'm supposed to have an impression of Loki, I feel like I'm missing something. Because who was it? Tom Hiddleston, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's the actor who plays Loki.
Yeah,
I love him,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like his dry sense of humor in these 3 episodes did not translate.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the writing was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Loki's character, I feel like if I watched it in a different show somehow, in a different movie, some sort of different writing,
Mm-hmm.
maybe like the first episode. The first episode, I don't know why I watched the whole episode. I could have just watched the last 5 minutes and then been like, oh, okay, I see what they're now going to do for the rest of the show. They're going to have him help them, and he's going to try to fuck them over. Like, why do we need 50 minutes of all of that? It was the biggest snooze fest to me. It was similar to like the first 3 episodes of Handmaid's Tale season 4 that you and I just reviewed, where it was a bit of a snooze fest. Like, thank God I was working and I was playing FIFA at the same time. Like, otherwise I would have been bored out of my mind. The second and the third episode, it was fine. I don't know if it was just me watching it, but the CGI was very poor. I guess that's the way I'll put it. Like, I could literally tell every single time that they were in front of a green screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they did not do a great job of creating worlds, especially in the third episode when they were on something
Lamentus.
Lamentus 1, yeah. Like, it looked bad. Like, they try to pretty it up with bright lights and colors and everything, but it just looked bad. As far as like Loki, the character itself, I feel like it should be a better character than what these 3 episodes gave me. And again, I don't know anything about Loki. I had to have Anna explain to me that he's the brother of Thor, the son of a god, something like that.
Foster child of God.
Okay, well, let me bump it up from a 2 to a 3 out of 10 then, just to give him a little bit of credit because he's a foster kid.
Well,
those are
enough.
my thoughts.
Fair enough. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't yeah, I actually didn't think the writing was that bad. In fact, I thought it was a little different than what we've gotten in some of the previous Marvel shows. And honestly, I think that Marvel's been on kind of a run of doing things that are different with these three shows. They had WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now Loki, and they're doing different things with all of them. And I'm actually here for it. Yeah, I didn't really find the writing too much of a problem. Did it drag in parts? I think so. I think that's hard to deny with the first two episodes. But what they're setting up, I think, is a very interesting thing. Now we've got this whole thing with the timekeepers, and what's interesting about that is it boils down, and I was watching a video online, and what I was talking about is the concept of determinism, and or free will, right? Whether our futures are already written out, and we're just kind of living them out, going through the motions, or we have complete free will of choosing our paths, of what we're trying to do. And I think that that's kind of the core of the show, right? Is the idea of determinism or free will. And I thought that was a very interesting uh, uh, perspective to come from, even told in this kind of like wacky, zany kind of way with Loki. It still presents it in this sort of or it still presents that essential sort of question. So when looking at it from that, like, what do you think of that concept within the show, but then also just like overall, like what do you think of just that
Ah,
argument?
so honestly, like I know what you're saying, and I feel like you and I have had a couple of these discussions when it comes to not specifically this. The idea that everything is predetermined, there is no free will, etc., etc.
Mhm.
It all is in the vein of a higher being, spirituality, which my stance on that. I don't need to like go into it. It
Yeah,
turned me
yeah.
off right
We'll,
away.
we'll we'll be here for another
You know,
15,000 years if that's.
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't like. I I get where they're going with it.
Mhm.
And honestly, after episode three, I was kind of like, I was taking a shower, and I'm like, okay, like this isn't bad. I can watch this in the shower. Depending on if they keep going with this, theme of, oh, can we alter, this timeline and get rid of these gatekeepers, and are things predetermined for us, or are we the choosers of our own destiny? I could go with it. It's been done so many times. There's nothing original about it. They may have put it into the, Marvel universe, if you
Mhm.
will, but it's not a new idea. It's played out, it's been done. Like, okay, like it's a little bit more interesting that they got to that point, in episodes two and three, because after episode one, I was like, this is just boring. But overall, the concept, it's been done many a times. Uh, I'll give you a movie that did it really well.
Mhm.
Fetching Cody. I don't know if you ever seen that. They played
Yeah.
around with that same sort of concept of going back and, well, in this case, it was going back in time to alter the events of one specific event that happened. But then they had to keep going to different points in a person's life to try to alter their course, so that way they don't end up in that point. Like, it's all been done. So
Mhm.
was I like excited about it? No. Like, I thought it was whatever. I guess it could be worse. Could be watching a guy throw a shield around.
Fair enough. Uh,
Could be
yeah.
watching Brie Larson do whatever she does in the movies. I don't know. Shout out to
uh,
Arain.
yeah. Shout out to Rain. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that I thought they took it from an interesting standpoint. But I guess, yeah, it makes sense if you're more of a not necessarily even have to be a Marvel fan, so much as you just seen some of the other uh some of the other things that they've done, because it kind of opens up an entirely sort of interesting thing within the Marvel world as we know it right now through the movies. But I think also they just, it poses this interesting question of like, okay, even if our fates were determined, and there's this sort of like master timeline as they pose in the series, right? The question I would have then is, okay, you have this master timeline, but why did the timekeepers, and obviously this is probably something that they're going to get to in the show, but why did the timekeepers get to decide what is the official timeline and what is not? Like, what is so special about them that they have this sort of omnipotent power to determine that? Like, why are they better gauged to say, okay, and then why is everything suddenly, oh, this is all within the plan? Like, so for instance, Thanos, and maybe a spoiler alert, I guess, if you're somehow going to get around to watching all these other movies, but Thanos' snap, oh, well, that was a part of the timeline, and all the Avengers bringing all that stuff back, or bringing everybody back, that was also part of the time. And it's just like, well, why? Like, that seems like a pretty catastrophic event that could have gone wrong any number of different ways. And so, why are those major events? And then it's just like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, let me
I
ask
think
you this,
sure.
because and I don't want you obviously to go into the entire storyline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
Sure.
because I'm sure we'd be here for days. But is it actually going to make sense now? Like, whatever conclusion that they get, is it gonna make sense in the Marvel Cinematic Universe based on what happened in the other, like you just mentioned, the whole finger snap? I assume when I heard about that life as the Marvel universe knows it ended. So, like, will this make any sort of sense in the end of it? Like, how do you think they can connect all this to bring it
Well,
back to how it ended in, I
well,
guess, the last
weirdly enough,
movie?
this would actually help it make sense, right? So basically, this snap was, Thanos snapping his fingers and basically eliminating half of the universe, like the living creatures in the universe. So humans, I think animals, right? I don't know, but half the known universe got wiped out. So the Avengers had to go back in time basically to get the Infinity Stones in order to basically recreate the glove that Thanos used to do this, to snap their own fingers and bring everybody back. And so, but what that did, look, man, you laugh. And what I find so ironic about like the how you perceive the Marvel universe is the cognitive dissonance of the fact that you love YA novels and
Yeah, yeah.
movies,
I
which
was
is
literally
is
thinking the
so
same
interesting.
thing.
It's so interesting how you could hear that and you'd be like, "Oh, that's so stupid," but then like you hear like, "Oh, this werewolf loves this vampire or whatever the fuck it is," and you're like, "No, that's plausible. That's in the realm of your reality." Whereas a
All right,
fucking big,
first things first. Like,
yeah.
Twilight is not in the realm of my YA
It's whatever. It's a
appreciation.
YA fucking thing. Okay, don't try to act like it's beneath the YA stratosphere. All right, come on, do better. Do better there. What was your second thing? You sound like you had a second thing. You said first off.
No, no, that was it.
That
That
was
was
it.
kind
Oh,
of like the
okay.
point of just saying first off and then just cutting it off, like the snap of a thumb.
Yeah. But so this is actually going to help things kind of make a little bit more sense because one of the ideas is that the Avengers going back in time and getting their own Infinity Stones that would kind of automatically fuck up timelines because they would, if they pulled a stone from a timeline that had to do something to that timeline, like, so that it had to offshoot somehow. And then with some of the later series is like WandaVision, there's things in that kind of allude to the timeline being kind of all fucked up and shit. And so yeah, long story short, I think that this might actually help make some of that make sense. So as crazy, or not crazy, but as like off kilter as this show kind of seems so far in terms of just like the whole idea of different timelines and yada yada, it actually would make the main Marvel storyline make a little bit more sense, if not push it into like it's like what the next great battle is going to be. So yeah, I'm here for it, dude. I like the show. Like I said, it dragged a little bit for me at times, but I didn't mind that for some of the payoffs that we've gotten so far. And I think Tom Hiddleston, I think he's done a wonderful job in the series. I think Owen Wilson has done a fantastic job in this series. He's his very Owen Wilson self, and I'm all about it. Yeah, yeah,
I
but
don't know. Like my thing with like having Owen Wilson is in it is like Owen Wilson. Obviously, as soon as you hear his voice,
mhm.
you kind of expect a certain type of character to come out, from him. Wedding Crashers, my best friend Dupree, or whatever the hell that movie was called. Like you're kind of expecting something like that, and to have him in 3 episodes, I think it was like 1.5 episodes too much already. Like it feels a little worn out listening to him, especially with those drawn out conversations. Like the whole conversation with him in the first episode trying to figure out what Loki's deal is. The second episode where they're sitting at the lunch table and Loki's describing to him what his hypothesis is. Like and this might just be what my problem is with the first 3 episodes. Those scenes were really drawn out, and
I
and
can
and I
I can
get
see
it.
where you're
Like
coming from. Sure.
I get like that. That's kind of where they were going with it, but man, it was difficult to pay attention to those long drawn out scenes. Even with Tom Hiddleston or Loki and I guess the other Loki. Who's the actress who plays
I
in
don't.
the third
I gotta find her
episode?
name.
Tara Strong, I think that's who it is. I think. But anyway, like their conversation, like right before the end of the
No, her
of
her name is
episode 3 was
Sophia Di Martino.
yeah, DiMartino. Yep, that's her. Yeah, I had just a wiki page up, but yeah, like it was so drawn out. It was really drawn out. I mean, it was like, are they ever gonna finish this damn conversation? Okay, like tell him about your mother. Move the fuck on. Like let's get to the next fucking scene. I'm sorry. I gotta preface this that I'm like really hangry at the moment, and like somebody
Yeah.
promised me a certain type of dinner, and I didn't really get it, so I'm really hangry. And that was the third
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, I assumed that there was something else going on. Like, there's something else happening here. This isn't just
Yeah, I
his
fucking
hatred
had
of
cereal,
Yeah. No, man. I get what you mean. Some of them, some of the scenes were for sure, I think, drawn out. But I do think that, the actors portraying the characters can carry that. Like they can make it somewhat worth it. It's not like what's a movie? There's been a few movies we watched recently where I thought, oh my god, like there's just so many scenes where it's just drawn out. Like I don't know if it's the best one, but I'll give it anyways. Is Nomadland. I thought that some of the
Oh my
scenes
god,
there
yeah,
were very sort of like drawn out, which I guess is like the style that they were going for,
yeah.
but it wasn't as enjoyable. Like I wasn't getting everything from it, even though like with some of these longer scenes you can have them, but you gotta the people in them have to be able to carry them, and I didn't,
Yeah.
and that wasn't probably the best, example, but with some other things, it's like, I really do mind because the people involved in the actual specific scenes, they can't carry the scene. So it becomes painful to like sit through. With this, I think, sure, Owen Wilson, his shtick becomes a little stale after a while, but I would say that if you just isolate the scenes in and of themselves, I think they still work. They may be drawn out, but the characters still, they still find ways to make it interesting for you within them. But yeah, I think that the series is interesting with where it's going as far as its overall theme. I'm I'm interested to see where the story goes, but not only that, I'm uh, I'm excited to kind of see what their response is, what their answer is for this whole scenario of determinism versus free will. If ultimately they believe that we do have free will or we don't, and our fates are already predetermined, like everything. So even Loki doing all this has been predetermined. So yeah. Anyways, That was just chopping it about
But
chopping it about
the
the
interesting one like thing to just last point that you had just made.
sure.
You know, is it predetermined that everything Loki is doing right now is already predetermined? Wouldn't that in itself be its own timeline that the timekeepers already know about?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, but I guess that's what I'm
So,
saying. Is
like
it's like
to me,
I'm
then
sorry.
that means it's probably not predetermined. It's probably the latter.
No, well, wouldn't that mean it would be predetermined if what he's doing now is a part of their plan? Then that it's a part of their plan, you know. So like him rebelling, quote unquote, or if that's even what he's doing, or trying to get to them, is part of what they've already planned out, which is totally plausible. I don't necessarily know if that's the direction they're going in clearly, but yeah, and you know, again,
Interesting.
I was watching a video that was talking about like the Matrix. That the Matrix is a really good example of this, of and more specifically, the Matrix Reloaded, in that it Neo was never like all their fates were already sort of determined. The computer had already, or the machines had already sort of like determined, like, hey, we're basically just going to restart this whole thing all again, right? That this whole idea of the one saving everybody is not, it's kind of bullshit, right? That we have to kind of do that because you idiots won't, you won't accept anything otherwise, you know, that you need to feel like you have free will in order to go along with our simulation, you know. And so perhaps that's what we're kind of getting in Loki as well, is, you know, them making everybody feel like they have free will when really they don't. And that, in a way, that's the best way to control people, right? Is to make them feel like they actually have a choice when really they don't have any choice in what they're doing. You know, I think a lot of times in politics, right? That's what works, is the idea of false choice, that you're posed with like two different things and you're like, all right, fuck, I gotta choose between these things, but it doesn't fucking matter which one you pick, you end up with basically the same fucking result, but you feel like you've chosen something, and that makes you kind of want to do it again, right? Then you're more willing to be like, all right, well, maybe next time I can do this differently or whatever, but really it doesn't fucking matter, it's the same shit. So anyways, but yeah,
Maybe they can choose a timeline and go back and fix the Fast and Furious timeline. You know, just
no,
I don't even know what chronological order
incorrect.
it's going in.
Incorrect. There is no, the Fast and Furious timeline is perfect as is. Okay, clearly their $1 billion movies don't need any help. Okay, they'll be all right. Yeah, it still boggles my mind that they've all kind of like they've increased in somehow in sales. Anyways, that was our convo about Loki. We're at episode 3 at this point in time. You guys let us know what you think of the series so far. You like it? You hate it? Are you like Addy and somehow you'll give YA novels and TV shows and movies a try, but you
Hey,
get to Marvel and you're like,
hey,
this is a bridge
look,
too
man.
far.
Look, man. I low key liked low key.
No, Jesus Christ. All right. We've gotten to the
Yeah,
wrapping
I done did it.
stage of this conversation. So we'll just move on. All right. Let us know.